Do Democrats want to prioritize the health care of illegal aliens over a government shutdown? Because if the government does shut down, American employees
Excuse
are going to
me,
be furloughed.
stop it right there. We're not prioritizing. What we're doing is saying simply we want to keep the government open and we want to work with the Republicans and have a bipartisan agreement to keep this government open, and health care is at the top of our agenda.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that health care is available to those who would die, but having the help of their government.
Batya, that's it, right? We want health care for everyone. Is that, you talk about messages that resonate with every American, every everyday American. Is that something that that Republicans should stick on, or should they go more to your point about saving pharmaceutical drug costs?
I think that journalists should ask every single Democrat, if an illegal migrant walks into a hospital, should the American taxpayer foot their bill? Like, it's utterly infuriating that an American who did that would potentially face, hundreds and thousands of dollars in debt. The number one cause of bankruptcy is medical debt in America. It's horrifying. And by the way, Sean, it's not the poor. It's the middle class. It's the working class who gets squeezed.
All right, guys, it is Wednesday. We're over the hump, but it's a hump that shut down because the government is officially closed. At midnight last night, the Schumer shutdown took place. The Democrats drew a line in the sand and said, we're not there. It was interesting. 3 Democrats actually voted with the Republicans. Rand Paul voted no. So the 53 majority went to 52, but Fetterman, Cortez Masto of Nevada, and Angus King of Maine, the independent who's with the Democrats. So it was a 55 vote. For Republicans, just need 5 more Democrats to come over on their side. And boom, there we go. We're going to break this down with Batya Ungar-Sargon. She's going to be here. I always love Batya's take. And she kind of looks at it like not as a partisan or a political operative, just as a normal person, what's playing. And then Rachel Bade is an independent journalist. She's going to give us the insight into where the votes are right now, because I think that's the path forward. Just 5 more votes. And my guess, if you're a betting person, is like Friday, Saturday, somewhere in there, maybe the first of the week. But like the pain's going to start to pile up on Democrats for not doing their job. By the way, yesterday, in case you didn't catch this, Pete Hegseth was on fire yesterday. The president, he showed up at Quantico. Pete, the Secretary of War, calling in all of the top admirals, generals, senior enlisted, and basically making it very clear. There's no more, this is a direct quote from him, no more identity months, DE offices, dudes in dresses, no more climate change worship, no more division, distraction, or gender delusions. That's a guy focused on the mission. When Hegseth talks about the warrior ethos, that's what he's talking about, being focused on fighting and defending this country. Not about your feelings, just about being ready to go and ready to take on the fight. I want to tell you this, though, and the president, by the way, made this massive drug announcement yesterday. I'll get into this with Batya a little, because this was massive. When you talk about taking down people's costs of drugs, this was a big deal. And it's interesting because Democrats right now are saying this whole this whole keeping the government thing is overfunding the government. And then when Republicans say, yeah, but you want to give it to illegals, you know what they all say? Oh, no, that's not true. But I want to remind you of a moment at the Democratic debate last year. Savannah Guthrie was hosting it. Take a look at what the Democrats said. All of them. Look.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
So she's asked every one of them, would your plan for healthcare include undocumented immigrants? Every single one raises their hand. So it's unbelievably disingenuous to say, oh my God, this has nothing to do with immigrants. They're very clear on this. This is who they want. They say it shouldn't matter if you're a citizen. You should get healthcare if you're in the country. But now that they're on defense because they realize the American people don't support that, they're suddenly like, I don't know where this is coming from. And that's where it's coming from. For years, they thought it was a great idea. Now suddenly, I don't know. Where did this come from? I have no idea. Anyway, we got a great show coming your way. Batya Ungar-Sargon's here, and then Rachel Bade is going to give us the insight as far as the votes are. Tomorrow, an amazing panel coming your way. We'll break it all down. Chris Tegal is going to be here. Caroline Downey of the National Review. Friday, Dr. Robert Malone. He's always, you want to talk about Maha. I used Maha before. It was cool. And then next week, Eric Trump. I continue to ask, please do me a favor. Hit that subscribe and notification button. Send the link to 5 friends. Whatever you guys did last night with John Solomon was unreal. So let's do that again. Keep sending that and go over to Apple and Spotify and hit that 5-star review. Before we bring in Batya, though, I got to tell you guys, if you've been traveling, you always worry about whether or not your flight's going to come in on time or it's delayed or worse. Part of the problem is that we've got a way decades outdated air traffic control system. Fortunately, President Trump, as part of the big, beautiful bill, said that we need to redo it. He's allocated billions for it. There is a great company that exists to help this problem. It's called Peraton. It's got things that we can do to modernize air traffic control. These guys are focused on 3 big things: the people, the technology, and the innovation. And here's the cool thing. They are tested. They've been working with the Department of Defense and for NASA. They are employing tons of Americans, and they're already solving some big problems in the national security space. This could be a serious upgrade of, if you've had a delayed flight or late flight or missed flight, this is part of the problem. And Peraton knows exactly how to fix it. They're ready to provide the support and the upgrades that we need that'll make it more safer, more reliable. Go to Peraton.com, Peraton, Peraton.com/ATC to find out more. The future of air travel is here, and Peraton is going to deliver it. By the way, guys, in the middle of the show, if you're ever hungry, you know what I want to do? Give you a Maha approved snack. This is my new go-to, Masa Chips. Oh my gosh, I met the owner a few months ago at a Bobby Kennedy thing. Unbelievable. Stuff used to be, all of our snacks used to be in beef tallow, and then suddenly, no way. Everyone went over to seed oils because I'm sure it was cheaper. So, and now seed oils are making up 20% of our average daily calories. It's unbelievable. The cool thing about Masa Chips is they went back to just 3 ingredients: salt, corn, and beef tallow. It's amazing. I love these chips. And the cool thing is they come in all sorts of flavors. I use the variety pack. I get the original, the blue. I love the lime. My son is a big habanero fan. They are so cool. If you're like a dipper, you use salsas or guac or whatever. They're crunchier, they're tastier, they're sturdier than other chips. I absolutely love them. If you want to give them a try, go to masachips.com/Sean, masachips.com/Sean. Use code Sean for 25% off your first order. I'm telling you, get the variety pack, masachips.com/Sean. Use code Sean for your first order, get 25% off. Without further ado, let me bring in Batya Ungar-Sargon, the host of the brand new show on News Nation, Batya! Exclamation point. Batya, welcome back. Great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean. It's great to be here with you.
So it's nice we get to do this, and now you are part of the News Nation family, although I've been a contributor for like 2 years. They haven't asked me to get a show, and suddenly, next thing you know, Batya is all over my Saturday programming on News Nation.
Batya! Exclamation mark!
Oh yeah. It's like when Trump does sad, it's like sad. Now it's just Batya. Do you say it louder? Is it because the explanation?
The thing about having a show called Batya! Exclamation point is it's all down here from here, right? Like it's not going to get better than this. My next show, whatever it is not going to be called Batya! Exclamation point. So I'm just like enjoying the ride for as long as it lasts.
I don't know what other punctuation, because Batya period could be good. Batya like hyphen, I don't know, and Batya question mark. That would be an interesting one. Maybe
I feel like Batya ... question mark would be pretty bomb.
Okay, well, congrats. It's got to be cool to get into the hosting role.
John. Thank you. Yeah, it's very different.
All right, I want to I want to actually talk to you about the shutdown and what's going on, because I feel like you've got your pulse on what's happening, not because of any kind of congressional insight, but as you look at this and you talk to people, just from somebody who's not in the political game day in and day out, give me your view as to how you see this government shutdown.
I think most Americans really don't care about this kind of thing. It's the kind of thing that like elites care about a lot and talk about a lot. All of my TVs are about this. But what Americans care about is what the president signed yesterday, which was this amazing deal with Pfizer, where they're going to save hundreds of dollars a month on medications. Like, that is absolutely huge. And it was not in the A block of any show that I watched after it happened. So to me, there's such a weird thing where the things that the elites care about are utterly irrelevant to the average American. And to me, it seems like to see Democrats go out there and try to portray the shutdown as them saving healthcare when the American people will at some point hopefully understand that Trump just got them like hundreds and hundreds of dollar discount a month on their medications, it rings really, really false. I do think that the Republicans are kind of overstating the case a little bit on what the Democrats' objections are. But even the fact that, I don't know about you, Sean, but to me, the question of illegal migrants is so relevant because if you think about it, every illegal immigrant in America is either working and thus driving down the wages of American workers or is living off of government benefits, right? It's so infuriating, like either case. So I think the Republicans have realized this is a button that they can press. And if it rings true, Americans will understand how infuriating that is because it is infuriating. But honestly, Sean, I think people just are very confused about it. I don't think they're following it closely. And I would just urge my colleagues in the media to keep their eye on the things that actually matter to the American people.
Now that you're in the media. So when you say the Republicans have maybe overplayed their hand a little, give me an example of like, what you mean by that?
Okay. So I think, so for me and for regular Americans, it's very frustrating when you can't tell who's telling the truth because the narrative is so bifurcated on either side. You turn on Fox, it's one thing. You turn on CNN, it's another thing. Most of the time of late, I will say the last 2 years, in my estimation, 95% of the time, it's very easy to tell who's telling the truth. And 95% of the time, it's been the Republicans. I mean, that's the Trump era, right? The Democrats are just beclowning themselves, opposing everything he does, and often just with complete lies. This question of whether the Republicans are right or the Democrats are right, that the whole thing about the shutdown hangs on whether to give illegal immigrants health care or not. I watched your show this morning, as I do every single morning meeting. I never miss it. Guys, don't ever miss that show. But I came away still feeling like I don't know who is telling the truth. The Democrats say that illegal immigrants, it's illegal for them to sign up for Obamacare, which I think is true. On the other hand, they will admit that an illegal immigrant can walk into a hospital and get emergency care. That is also true. So it seems like each side has a little bit of the truth, but I find it very alienating where we get to a situation where it seems clear that both sides are a little bit overplaying their hand. And I do feel a little bit that way on that specific front.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because I think one of the things that's also interesting about your analysis, and that's why I was so intrigued by it, is that the Republicans, I think, have a very simple argument, which is the government is shut down. We're willing to, we need to negotiate more. That's, again, I would argue that these guys should have done their job well before this, but let's just leave that aside now because I think it's ridiculous that we are here. That we are at the end of the fiscal year, like somehow I always say it's like Christmas. You knew it was coming, and then you're like, oh my God, it's the end of the fiscal year. I wish I had a calendar or a phone with a calendar on it because I had no idea that September was happening. Okay, leave that aside for a second. Republicans, I think, have a very simple argument, which is we need to extend government spending at current levels for 7 weeks so we can continue to negotiate. It's exactly what we've done in the past for 13 times. And there's no policy changes, and that's it. And Democrats are saying, we'll only agree to that if you give us a policy change, whatever it is. In this case, it's healthcare. But my point is, Republicans should just say, all we're asking for is more time to talk about this issue. It's not imminent. You don't have a healthcare issue until the end of the year. But the bottom line is the Republicans could keep it simple. I get your point where you're getting it muddy, and I think that's the goal of the Democrats. I want it muddied up. I want to talk about healthcare because I don't want to have an argument about just extending. And that's the thing, right? Right now, it's All we're asking for on the Republican side is say, buy us 7 weeks so we can keep talking at current levels. And oh, by the way, you already voted for this, so you should be good with everything because there's no like policy changes.
So to me, like, as if you're a regular American, you're not following this very closely, you turn on your TV and you hear somebody say that doesn't make much of an impact on me. It's very processed. And to me,
Right.
I know to us, you said it, you articulated it beautifully, like very clearly, but it's still in the weeds. What I would say if I was advising these people is go out and say, sorry, we're the side that cares about your healthcare now. Like that was the one issue out of 15 issues that the Democrats still had more trust of the American people than Republicans as of polling 3 months ago. Like everyone's acting like Trump didn't just do what he just did. What he just did was so significant because up until now, he understands that healthcare is very important to average Americans, including working class Republicans. What he did was he brought in RFK Jr. I'm not a big fan of RFK. I find him to skirt a little too close to, vaccine stuff that could be very dangerous to children. What Trump did this week was epic. He literally took a thing that every Democrat has promised to do, which is bring down the cost of drugs, and this disgusting situation in which the American people are paying 500% more than Europeans for drugs we developed, the absolute chutzpah. Every Democrat has promised to do this. None of them did, and Trump did it. And he did it by having laid the groundwork for 8 months with the tariffs, okay? Like the genius, that's 4D chess here is staggering. No one could have done this but Trump. And Trump pulled it off. If I'm the Republicans, I go out there and instead of standing there and saying, all we're asking is to, keep some in the weeds processing that means nothing, I say, we're the side of healthcare now. We care about your drug prices. We care about the American dream. What Dr. Oz and RFK Jr., to his credit, both said yesterday, no American should have to choose between filling a prescription and buying groceries. That's our thing now. Suckers. Sorry, Democrats. You missed the boat. Now we care about healthcare. The way that they stole immigration from the Democrats, the way that they stole the working class platform from the Democrats. I think that's the winning message. But I think they're scared to do it. There's this muscle memory in a lot of Republicans, and we've talked about this before, to where they still feel like they have to cut taxes for rich people. There's this muscle memory. They haven't realized yet who their base is. Like all the rich people now are Democrats. Like stop doing favors for Democrats.
Okay, so Stephen Chung, the White House communications director, is watching the show right now, I hope. And he's saying, you know what? She's got a really good point. We just did something massive. Like we're talking about healthcare costs. We just delivered on it. Like,
hello?
To your point, hello. Okay. So he says, Batya, obviously we did this big thing in the Oval yesterday with Oz and RFK and it didn't break through as much because your point, none of the morning shows really covered it. It wasn't front page. And I get it. Right. There's a government shutdown that kind of won. So Stephen Chung or Caroline Levitt say, all right, Batya, I totally agree with you. We just had this huge messaging win and delivering for the American people. What do we do now? Because how do we get a second bite at the apple? How do we go out and tell the American people, if you really want to talk about healthcare, then look at what we just did?
First of all, every single one of the administration officials who turned down my show, Batya ! On News Nation, come on my show and talk about this, please. And instead they're saying, no, we're not doing interviews because of the shutdown. Please, let's make this.
Wait, hold on. Time out. They said to you, we can't do it because of the shutdown?
I've gotten a couple of rejections. We're not doing media because of the shutdown. I don't know if they mean they're only talking about this is the shutdown story. That's right. What I'm trying to say. Come on my show and let's make this the shutdown story. Okay, that's A, what I would recommend. B is I would say tell Johnson, tell Thune, tell the vice president who's going on every single show. This is the message. Don't stop talking about the Democrats and start talking about the working class. Talk about your voters. The person that you're trying to, get, who you're trying to convince watching your show, it shouldn't be the eighth Democrat who's going to defect. Sean, as you beautifully pointed out this morning, that's going to happen anyway. Stop talking to them. Stop talking to the donors of the Republican Party. Talk to the single mom who's got a disabled kid who right now is deciding whether to fill her diabetes prescription or go get groceries. Talk to her. You just did something amazing for her. And instead of standing out there and shouting it from the rooftops, they're walking away from it and acting like it never happened. It's very frustrating.
All right, I want to play you a video from Maxine Waters, though. I want to show you, and I want to just get your take because we're talking about messaging and what should happen, right? So a reporter goes up to Maxine Waters off the floor of the House yesterday and asks her about shutting down and this whole issue of fighting for healthcare for illegals. And this is what she had to say. Let me just play it to you. And I want you to give me your take on whether or not it's an effective message for Republicans to be on, aside from the prescription drug one. Take a look.
Do Democrats want to prioritize the health care of illegal aliens over a government shutdown? Because if the government does shut down, American
Excuse me, stop it right there. We're not prioritizing. What we're doing is saying simply we want to keep the government open and we want to work with the Republicans and have a bipartisan agreement to keep this government open, and health care is at the top of our agenda.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that health care is available to those who would die, but having the help of their government.
All right, Batya, that's it, right? We want health care for everyone. Is that, you talk about messages that resonate with every American, every everyday American. Is that something that that Republicans should stick on, or should they go more to your point about saving pharmaceutical drug costs?
I think that journalists should ask every single Democrat, if an illegal migrant walks into a hospital, should the American taxpayer foot their bill? Like, it's utterly infuriating that an American who did that would potentially face, hundreds and thousands of dollars in debt. The number one cause of bankruptcy is medical debt in America. It's horrifying. And by the way, Sean, it's not the poor. It's the middle class. It's the working class who gets squeezed, because the poor have Medicaid, which is like the Cadillac of healthcare. It's great healthcare. By the way, this was my only objection to the big, beautiful bill, is no American should be losing their healthcare, even if, in my view, there's a lot of people who are Republican voters who are working two jobs as a handyman in some, rural area and not making enough through either job to get healthcare. And maybe they're defrauding the system and they're on Medicaid. But if we take them off that roll, their family's going to end up paying for that. And their family are probably Republicans. Again, it's like we're in this situation where I think Republicans don't understand who their own voters are. I'm not saying they shouldn't help Democrats who are working class, obviously, but, a lot of the people who are getting hurt by this stuff, I'm for firing federal workers, like white collar workers who read 3 emails a day and then watch YouTube videos for the rest of the day. Like, I have no problem firing those people, but I just think Republicans don't quite understand who their voters are. It is so utterly infuriating to me that an illegal immigrant, many of whom, by the way, come from socialist countries that have socialized medicine, right? So they already have free healthcare in the countries where they are citizens, are coming here and getting our free healthcare when there's working class people making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year and facing bankruptcy because of medical debt. I just find that it makes me see absolute red. But again, the question is you don't want to get into a situation where it's a he said, she said, and an American who's not paying a lot of attention is like, well, I turned on CNN, they said one thing, I turned on Fox, they said the opposite, right? To me, that's a very dangerous place to go. But I totally support demanding every Democrat be on the record saying, no, we do support working class Americans barely making it, living on a shoestring budget, paying for this illegal immigrant who broke our laws to get better health care than them. Force every Democrat to say that for sure.
Yeah. When you were talking about the big breakthrough yesterday that they announced on pharmaceutical drugs, right? I love the way that you framed it, because it wasn't just an announcement. We've been working behind the scenes to do this. It was Trump threw out the tariffs, said, hey, I'm going to tariff you if you're not making pharmaceutical drugs. Pfizer said, oh, we got an idea. What if we lower the cost of drugs? They call it MFN, most favored nation. We bring the cost drugs down. You get to announce it, right? He thought it was a strategy. Okay. I would argue the same thing happened the other day when Prime Minister Netanyahu was here. Everybody was like, there's only one answer, which is a 2-state solution. And Trump said, maybe there's more than that. Maybe we actually isolate Hamas, get the Arab states on board, create this board, blah, 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 blah. And to me, I was like, see, this is the brilliance of Trump, is that he doesn't accept that there's the conventional PowerPoint Council on Foreign Relations, everybody does it this way model, or nothing. I actually can think of a business way to do this. And I just give me your take as a very outspoken Jew, what you thought of that, because I know Israel didn't get everything they wanted, but Hamas, I mean, like, I know that there's some question about what Hamas is going to do, but I thought to myself, this isn't Israel versus Hamas. What was so brilliant about it was Trump, Israel, all the Arab states saying, hey, Hamas, time's up.
So you just scooped my editorial, which will open my Saturday show, which is Trump's 3-point plan for deal making and how it applies equally to this amazing drug deal and to what he accomplished in the Middle East. So stay tuned for that. Anybody who wants to see
explanation point.
Yes, you'll see that Saturday, News Nation, 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. So I completely agree with you. On the drug pricing thing, it's so amazing because the Democrats would have made the taxpayer pay for it, right? Trump is making private industry pay for it. I mean, it's so amazing. It's industrial policy that's being paid for by the private sector. We'll never see this kind of leadership again. And I totally agree with you. You know, the thing about Trump and Israel is he's the kind of friend who can sort of pull you back from making a mistake. Bibi did not want to sign that. And I don't know if you saw the photo of Trump sitting there making Bibi call Qatar and apologize for bombing them. It looks like your dad when you're like 8 years old and you don't want to call your grandma. And he's like, we're doing this. It's Yom Kippur tonight. Sit your ass down. We're calling Safta. Like, that photo is amazing. And again, Trump laid the groundwork for this starting back in his trip to the Middle East when he went to these Gulf nations and was like, screw shared values. We want to make money. You want to make money. Come and make money in America. Make money for America. It's going to be great. He convinced them that he had their best interests at heart. And of course, the Israelis know that about him. He's so pro-Israel. And what he did was he did the 3-step plan, Saturday, 4 p.m. You can hear more about that, and managed to convince both sides to come to the table. There was one thing that I just saw reported that I really don't understand, and maybe you can help me understand, which is he has apparently given Qatar security guarantees that if they are attacked again, we will support them diplomatically and even militarily should it come to that. So a kind of like most favored nation plus mini, NATO status. And I was really confused by that. I mean, I understand it in the context of trying to end the war, which I know is a huge priority for him. He cares so much about the hostages. But I don't understand that in terms of his commitment to not get more involved militarily in the Middle East. It seems kind of dangerous to set a precedent like that. What's your take on that, Sean?
Yeah, it's good. I think you're right. I think part of it was, though, you highlighted a minute ago, which is like Qatar's like, you want us to come help Israel? They just bombed us. And Trump says, well, I'll tell you what if I assure you that he's going to apologize? But more than that, if he does it again, I got your back. And I told Bibi, and that would, but it's also, to your point, it's not, I don't think of it as intervention because I think Trump said to Bibi, listen, to your point about the call, I'm getting your grandmother on the phone. If you ever go over to her house and leave a mess again, you're going to have to deal with me. You understand that, right? You're going to apologize to her. But I'm telling you this right now. I will have her back every time going forward. She's my mom. I will have her back. And by the way, you will never forget that you did this again. And I think that was more of a, like hey, we need you on board on this deal. I talked to Dad. He knows what's happening. He's never going to let this happen again, right? He's telling Bibi, don't you dare. And not only don't you dare, but I told Qatar, if it happens, I got their back. You understand that, right? And that was the way to keep the glue together. That's
very compelling. Yeah.
All right. Well, Sean, explanation point. I want to ask you one more thing, though, that I think is interesting. And by the way, I can't underscore this enough. I just want to make sure we're on the same team on this. Like, I'm so tired of experts, whether it's healthcare, tariffs, foreign policy, tax policy, like, he can't do this. And I'm like, he just did. How many times did Trump, like in a normal business world, if you have a killer product and you take whatever, the executives are coming to you being like, hey, Batya, I don't know what you did on that last project, but you killed it. Can you do it again? Can you work on this other client? And with Trump, he kind of defies the odds over and over again. And then they still are like, yeah, but this time he'll never do it. And I'm like, dude, how many times does he have to do it before you go, maybe he's got something there?
Yeah, I mean, this is why the mainstream media is just completely in the toilet. It's amazing. You watch CNN, watch MSNBC, I have them both up, and
why? Is it a punishment?
Well, because I want to know how the conversation is developing. Also, I have a segment on my show, Batya ! Called Media Fails. So, you want to see the, but it's like it's 2015. Like they have not moved at all. It's so amazing. And they just cannot admit, the staggering accomplishments of this administration.
All right, I want to ask you one more thing. There was this letter that got released. It was just, which I find the whole thing disgusting, that people are trying to litigate Charlie Kirk's beliefs after his death. I mean, let him rest in peace. But there's this whole letter that's now been released where he had recommendations to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Have you taken a look at that? And do you, I mean, talking about like sort of, I will say, I believe that Israel is losing the next generation of Americans in terms of support if they don't communicate more effectively on what they're doing and why our relationship is important. I think that was at least my takeaway from Charlie's letter. What did you think of it?
Yeah, he did this amazing focus group at the last Turning Point Student Action, what's it called? The SAS Summit. Yeah. And it was really amazing because it gives a much more hopeful view. 75% of this young people would call themselves pro-Israel, but they're done funding other countries. And I totally hear that. I mean, that's totally fair. I think Israel itself has paid a very high cost for the aid that we give them. They've had to sacrifice developing their own military industrial complex, which was, I think, a huge mistake. It's very hard to turn down $4 billion free dollars, but at the same time, they have about 2 weeks worth of bullets before they have to come crawling back to us. And we saw that have a disastrous impact on the way they were able to wage the war against Hamas. Biden constantly using that as leverage. So I don't know that the way they ask the question, who do you feel more sympathy for? The Israelis or the Palestinians? I mean, the Palestinians are so abject in this moment. Like the average Palestinian citizen of Gaza, like how can you not feel sympathy for them? Even if you think Israel's right. So I don't take the polls that seriously. I think that when you actually talk to young people, they'll say, obviously, I want the like Christian holy sites to be like, under the auspices of Jews and not Muslims. Like this is a totally obvious thing. They want Israel to be a Jewish state. They support Israel and its right to defend itself. What they're done with is, their taxpayer dollars going to fund other countries, whether it's Israel and Ukraine, when they can't afford a mortgage. And you know what? That's a great point. That's a fair point. And I think once Israel ends the war and we move on from this, things are going to change very, very quickly. I agree with you. I agree with a lot of people. It's really time to kind of get to the next stage of this. Hamas has been pretty much obliterated. It's now being run basically by teenagers because that's who's left. Israel killed a lot of the leadership. So I wouldn't judge the younger generation, certainly on the right, too harshly. I think that a lot of what's happening there are very fair conversations about aid and allyship. And I think that a lot of that will change going forward. Israel is a very good ally in the Middle East. And a lot of that has been obscured, I think, recently because of this war, but it'll come to light again.
Okay. Batya, thank you for being here. Remember, you can see Batya, ! And I think it has to be said that way, just to be clear. Batya, ! At 4 and 11 on News Nation Saturdays?
Yep, that's it.
All right. Congratulations on the show. All the best to you and see you soon.
Thank you. God bless you, Sean. Thanks for everything.
You bet. All right. For the latest on the government shutdown, I want to bring in independent journalist Rachel Bade. Rachel, good to see you. Thanks for being here. What's the latest?
What's the latest? Well, look, I think today Democrats are going to be feeling the heat quite a bit. I think there was a lot of questions about the strategy to begin with. I mean, tell me or show me a government shutdown that has ever worked in history when it comes to a party demanding something and actually getting it and not facing blowback. So there was obviously a question about this strategy to begin with. but look, they're starting off a little bit crippled. Chuck Schumer, as he lost 3 members of his caucus yesterday when they had the final vote to keep the government open. 3 Democrats who peeled off. And I think the pressure is just going to go up as, the coverage really starts to focus on what happens in a government shutdown. It's been more than half a decade, 6 years about. And sometimes people forget, but like there are real ramifications here. I mean, not just, 750,000 federal workers being told to stay home and you're not going to get paid, but things like troops showing up to work and not getting paid, border enforcement showing up to work and not getting paid. You think about air traffic controllers who are making sure our flights are on time and safe. You could see they're supposed to show up to work, but a lot of people, when they're not getting paid, maybe they call in sick and that could be a problem. And then for everyday Americans, it's like trying to get a hold of an agency and not being able to, trying to get a permit if you're a businessman or businesswoman, company owner of some sort, and you can't get that. So there are real ramifications here. And I'm not even talking about the economic blowback we could see on this. So I think, I'm not sure when we start to see Democrats cave on this, but I think the pressure is really going to be on them in the next 24 hours and going on beyond that.
All right, so just to set the scene for folks, Republicans have a 53-seat majority in the Senate. Rand Paul's never going to vote for this, so that's really 52 seats. So you need 8 Democrats, right?
Right.
And I thought Fetterman was a yes. Were you surprised by the other 2 yesterday?
Yes and no. I think in March, when Democrats were looking at this choice as well about whether they were going to shut the government down or not, there were 10, I believe, that voted to keep the government open. I obviously can't read their minds, and out there, a lot of them are publicly saying there was Schumer on this, but these guys, they've been around for a long time. They know this strategy doesn't work. So I wouldn't be surprised if more Democrats probably felt like they wanted to vote for this and then just felt, the pressure that they did not. I mean, Cortez Masto, one of the senators who voted for this, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, she was previously the Senate political committee leader. So she's also pretty smart on politics too. And so, she probably realized this was a losing hand. Angus King, an independent Democrat, or he's an independent from Maine, but he sort of caucuses with Democrats. Again, I'm not surprised to see him vote for this, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see more people beyond these folks. I mean, other folks to look at, Kirsten Gillibrand, she's from New York. She was one of the most vocal supporters for keeping the government open in March, and she actually voted against the funding the government yesterday. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her appeal. And there are a number of Democrats who are going to be retiring that we should watch as well. Gary Peters, Jeanne Shaheen.
Gary Peters of Michigan, Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so that gets us 3. By my math, which, I didn't take any in college, that leaves, we need 5, so that gets us 3. We need two more. Who are the next few likely that you think?
Maggie Hassan, probably as well. She's up for re-election, right? Or I could be wrong about that. And then Michael Bennet as well from Colorado. He is somebody I would watch as well. So,
so that gets you the. But then I can't believe, like I'm from Virginia. Warner and Kane to me are interesting because I got to believe that Northern Virginia, because of the concentration of federal workers and federal entities, buildings, et cetera here. How are they not feeling the heat?
Well, look, there actually was, I feel like there was one federal government employers union that sort of encouraged this on. I was surprised we didn't see more coming out against it. There were some federal employee unions who did come out against it. But yeah, it's a great question. For a lot of these Democrats, the argument is that President Trump is going to do what he wants to do. So you might as well play a little hardball. But we're already seeing this morning that the administration is willing to really put the heat on some of these constituencies. Russ Vought, who leads the Office of Management and Budget, he's a hardcore conservative. He came out and announced that they're going to be cutting, or freezing, I should say, $18 billion worth of infrastructure projects in New York City. So that's a direct hit obviously on Chuck Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries, the two Democratic leaders who are both from New York. So yeah, I mean, at some point, people are going to start to feel the burn, and it'll be interesting to see what those government workers start telling their Virginia senators on this.
You mentioned New York and Gillibrand, one of the ones that you thought was potentially a peel off. Do you think that Schumer, based on his previous votes, actually would rather get rid of this? Or is he just sticking, putting this line in the sand because he has to politically? He has to watch the left flank. I don't get the sense that historically he's been a guy that wants to be on the record for shutting the government down.
Yeah, I mean, look, you see what he's saying publicly. I've covered him for a long time. I feel like, if I was a gambling person and I could see into his heart of hearts, I would bet he knows this is probably not a good idea. I think, the pushback he got for keeping the government open in March was probably a shock to him. He probably knew he was going to get some heat, but the level of it was just incredible. And not just from, progressives around the country, but from fellow Democrats on Capitol Hill, even Hakeem Jeffries, who dissed him in a press conference for keeping the government open. So look, at some point, maybe he made this calculation that the base is telling me I have to touch the stove, and he's going to realize pretty quickly that it's hot. But maybe that is the strategy, right? Maybe it's to sort of teach the base a lesson. This doesn't work. Problem with that theory, if it's even right, is that as leader, it is your job to sort of tell your party when something is unrealistic. I mean, Mitch McConnell, you know this. He was not popular with the base. They didn't like him. And you know what? He kind of relished that. He collected cartoons making fun of him and put him in frames and put him up on his wall. He knew it was it's part of the job. And that's just what leaders are supposed to do. Schumer, he cares more about what the base thinks than Mitch McConnell ever did. And that's a problem.
You mentioned Russ Vought and sort of the strategic way that they're maybe looking at going after key constituencies. Do you think they've got a lot post Doge? Are they actually really looking at furloughing federal employees for good, using the gap between funding as a rationale for doing that?
I'm sure if it was up to Russ Vought, he would cut deep now that he has the power since the government is open. And by the way, they do have this power since Congress is not effectively doing their jobs. But when I heard that they were going to do something like this, I wasn't sure how much of it was just an attempt to sort of shake the trees and, provide some sort of leverage for themselves or try to scare Democrats. And the reason I had this thought is because I know when the Doge cuts were going on, there was a concern at some point that they were going too far. I remember talking to one pretty senior official in the administration who told me, look, cut the fat, yes. But at some point it becomes a problem if you're cutting into the bone. And that's why, Elon Musk, widely praised and loved at the beginning, started to go a little too far for some people in the admin who thought maybe, this wasn't the best play and that this was not being strategically done. So I don't know how much they are willing to actually cut. I do think these strategic cuts, like you're talking about, to sort of punish Democrats and put the pressure on them, we're just seeing the beginning of that. That's for sure.
The Democrats clearly think that making healthcare an issue is a winning message. I don't get the sense that most people are really buying this yet because it's not real. I mean, the ACA tax or subsidies don't expire to the end of the year. It's not like people are feeling so it's a hard thing to get people to wrap their head around, at least as far as I can see. Do you think that this is to them the only hand they have to play, or are they really bought in on this?
It's interesting because when I got a sense that Democrats were going to employ a different strategy here over the summer, my question is what's the fight? Is this about, impoundment, which for those who are not familiar with wonky congressional speak, basically this notion of the administration cutting, even though Congress appropriated money, the Trump administration has done that. It's really caused, it's been a sore subject for a lot of Democrats and even some Republicans on Capitol Hill. Were they going to shut down over that? Was it going to be over these ACA tax credits? Was it going to be, at one point, Democratic leaders said they wanted to see the Trump administration roll back some of the, the big, beautiful bill when it came to Medicare savings. So I think that there was this belief that they would have to do this. What is the best sort of thing to hang their hats on? And they probably chose correctly the right one because, ACA, these healthcare tax credits, even Trump's pollsters have looked into this and warned that this is an issue that a lot of people care about. It will hit a lot of middle income Americans if these, healthcare tax credits expire. So, Democrats have sort of, guessed this is something that perhaps they can get Republicans to deal on. The question, though, I guess I have is whether Republican leaders can hold the line with this no negotiating stance. I mean, I think if they say we're not going to negotiate on this at all until you reopen the government, I think that there's a plausible reason or a plausible sort of expectation that they will still win and Democrats will cave. Like, Democrats in 2018, 2019, when President Trump, shut the government down to try to get money for his border wall, they drew a line in the sand and said, no money for your border wall. 35 days went by. They did not negotiate, refused to budge. And President Trump ended up caving and took a bit of a hit in the polls. So I think Republicans would probably do well if they do that. The question is, will they?
So that brings me to one of my last questions here. I mean, I believe that strategically, the Republicans are basically saying, let's buy some time and then have that discussion, because that's what the long term, the CR just keeps the government funding at current levels for 7 weeks. And then the argument is, okay, within that 7 weeks, then let's have a discussion about subsidies and spending and all these other policy decisions. That's when their view is, you buy us some time, then we go back to the table and we talk. Right. That to me seems they're dug in. That's the only game they're playing. Is there any scenario that you see that not being the case? My view is their goal is just to figure out a way to slowly wait till 5 more Democrats come over and say, fine, we'll give you some more time to negotiate. We're not saying we're all in. We're just saying we're going to give time. And that's what this is really about.
Yeah, I think that's the strategy they should employ. I think that their argument on this is really strong, especially when you point to like troops not being paid and the pressure being put on Democrats to cave. I mean, you and I talked about this this morning on the morning meeting, the Mark Halpern show. There is the wild card, and that is the president himself, who likes to be sort of a deal maker and say, look, I'm going to come in and I'm going to clean up the mess. And when I talk to, people close with him, I get a sense that he's a little deal curious here.
Curious.
Could he sweep in and say, we're going to solve this issue. We're going to do something with the ACA, healthcare credits. Obviously, like I said, his pollster said it's something he probably needs to address at some point. Does he maintain this line with Republican leaders that I don't need to give anything? Or does he say, oh, I'm feeling like maybe I want to strike a deal here? And I don't know that it would be panic per se or something like they feel a vulnerability. Like I said, I think that this is a shutdown fight. Republicans can very easily win. But the president himself, he might want to do something here in terms of negotiations. It's just hard to predict. You know that.
Deal curious. I like it. Rachel Bade, do me a favor. Put your crystal ball on or pull out your crystal ball. If you had to guess when this goes till, what is your gut tell you?
I think probably next week. I think we'll be here for a week. I highly doubt we go past 2. The minute you hit that pay period where employees are missing a paycheck, like forget it. It's like you're in big trouble because a lot of these employees live paycheck to paycheck. They just can't afford to not be paid. What happens to your mortgage? What happens to your rent? How do you pay groceries, healthcare issues? I mean, it becomes way more complex. So I think, Democrats will probably hold out for a few days and see how this plays. But the longer it goes, the harder it gets for them.
Yeah, I'm betting by the weekend. Rachel Bade, we're going to put if you're interested in following Rachel's work, all of her handles, her YouTube channel, everything else is in the show notes. Go check it out. Keep an eye on it. She knows what's going on. She's got her finger on the pulse. She'll know before I do probably. So follow Rachel. Thanks for being here, guys. Remember, tomorrow's the panel. Chris DeGaulle, Caroline Downey will join us on Friday. Dr. Robert Malone, the latest on Trump's deal on vaccines, on prescription drug deals. And next week, Eric Trump. Thanks for being with us. Always go to SeanSpicer.com to sign up for the latest newsletter. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thank you. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.